Morning, everyone. Kun Chankrit, Vice Minister attached to the Prime Minister's office. Kun Kobsat, Deputy Secretary General to the Prime Minister for Political Affairs. Kun Renvadi, Secretary General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. And Kun Sunanta, Vice President of the Global Compact Network in Thailand. Ambassadors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly my great pleasure to welcome you today to discuss our collective contributions to the Sustainable Development Goals in Thailand. And not just to discuss them, but to talk about how we can finance and implement these goals. And that is a harder part of the equation than designing and planning for the goals. So let me first thank the government of Thailand for being such a strong champion of the SDGs, and also for the country's continued support and partnership with the UN and with UNDP. We know the adoption last December by the National Sustainable Development Council of an SDG accelerated roadmap, as well as the establishment of the Thailand Responsible Business Network, are truly commendable examples of such leadership. And these have started to mark the way also for other countries. Globally, and particularly in the Asia-Pacific region, the fight against poverty has made enormous progress, and sustained economic growth has also led to a rapidly expanding middle class. So overall, we might sit back and say, people are living healthier and better lives. So do we need to do much more? But as we enter a new decade, it is also clear that much faster action and really responsible collective action is needed to meet many of the goals. Because no matter what we say, we know that some of them are just not advancing at neither the speed nor the scale required, particularly for those who we need to reach the most. So, in this region, we still see growing inequalities. Some are old, like urban-rural divides. We still see gender wage gaps. And sadly, we see some new inequalities, like access to post-secondary education, like who gets the new jobs, who has access to technologies. And here too, we see new gender, rural, urban gaps. So while we are much more resilient today, if and when faced with a sudden shock, as has happened with, for example, the coronavirus, it could set us back many, many years, and we lose hard-won gains. So I would say that the development problem set that is in front of us is so much more complicated. And the intensity of climate change, protracted conflicts, only deepen these triggers. So we see these issues overlay with each other. And time is just not on our side. Our UN Secretary General has called, therefore, for a decade of action that has to deliver much speedier response on the SDGs by 2030. And when we look at the financing that this is going to take, there is no government that can do this alone. It will need all of the international community, and it will need all of the private sector to stand with and behind these goals. Now, the good news is there is a lot of money out there. We have to ask where it's going. So if you look at the current global capital market, over $250 trillion in private capital, and we just need 1% of that to really every year get to these SDGs in the developing world. So while public finance and international aid will remain necessary SDG funding instruments, we have to use them to make sure that private capital pivots and can be put to use for the SDGs as well. So at the end of the day, it's about getting the right financing mix and the blend of resources to go where they are needed most. And I was just talking with the Vice Minister and colleagues here in Bangkok, and it's very exciting to hear about new opportunities, including for fintech, for startups, that will soon also be able to be listed and have access to new capital. Another interesting point, if I deviate a little bit from my written statement here, is in most countries in the world, the new millennial generation of investors is looking to put their money in sustainable investments. So all corporations, new corporations, big investment companies, small capital investment opportunities will start shifting because their investors are going to say, this is now what we want of you. So I want to just give a sense of what UNDP brings to this equation, because we have been working with governments on this issue for a long time, and now increasingly working also with private sector, philanthropy, small and medium-scale enterprises to bring the measures of sustainability as a driving decision point behind investment choices, production and supply chain changes, and policy and institutional actions. So 5 things that we bring very quickly to the table. First, bringing very clear data and evidence to you. And not just data and evidence for, let's say, Thailand, but also bringing country comparators and practice from elsewhere, so we can all learn from what's working and not working in other places. Second, it is to support governments to develop and implement integrated national financing frameworks, and to bring these in and align them with national development strategies. Because if you can't get your finance and your planning in the same boat, then we're sailing in the wrong right direction. Third, very importantly, to work with interested companies, and many of them are here today, and thank you for that, to integrate the SDGs into their business strategies. And that unlocks new business opportunities. So let me say here that this is not only about corporate social responsibility. Companies can use that to pivot and to leverage, but it is about changing fundamentals of your business models. And that, doing it also much faster than ever before. It is the private sector that has the power to innovate and to unleash new technologies and create new jobs. And we need this in today's world for a new generation that can look to a cleaner, greener economy that can grow in sustainable ways. So it's about making a very different set of choices about your production patterns, your investment choices, and even as consumers, just in this room alone, what choices are you making in terms of walking the talk in this way? Now, let me also then say that fourth, we will work with partners to develop innovative financing solutions. So in Indonesia, for example, the government's first issuance of a green sukuk bond had an impact measurement framework supported by UNDP. There are many other instruments that we are working with in different countries, and we're happy to bring that experience here. And finally, it's to unlock private finance for the SDGs. And we have a whole stream of work called SDG Impact that really works very strongly in this area. So this is a 5-part menu that we would be very excited to work with all of you on. And let me end my remarks by recognizing the bold steps taken by our partner, the Securities and Exchange Commission, in encouraging the market to shift from what was a bold move at the time, which was to recognize ESG measurement, to now saying let's go for the SDGs. This is really the place. ESG pointed us in the right direction to set us off on the right path. But I would say that taking on the SDG measures gives you 2 extra points. One, it is universal. It allows you to really measure yourself against what others are doing across the world. And second, it's a level of ambition that the ESGs never met, with measurable targets behind a much more complex set of agendas here. And in that spirit, I also so very much welcome the collaboration with the Global Compact Network in Thailand, who are bringing their full force to bear with all the partnerships here to work with us together. So truly a warm congratulations to the government and the private sector and all our multilateral and bilateral partners in Thailand for coming together to push the bar so much higher and creating the conditions necessary for the financing space that truly will make this a sustainable financing agenda for the SDGs. Thank you very much.